So it gives me great pleasure to welcome our esteemed panelists today. And I want to begin by thanking all the parents and students who are here on a Saturday morning, taking key career decisions and deciding for themselves. So on stage, I'd like to invite Mahesh Balakrishnan. He's a recognition manager for the IB in India and Middle East as well, Mahesh? Southeast Asia. We also have Mr. V. Singh Anand. He's an ex-student of mine, so it gives me great pleasure to invite him on stage. He's an alumni of the Sri Ram School. He studied the ISC, and before he moved to do the diploma program at the Sri Ram School, he went on to study at the University of St. Andrews with the specialization in finance and economics. And then he came back, worked in London for a while, and he's back in India, working in India, representing St. Andrews, and doing multiple projects with them. So just I'm going to give a very brief outline for each of the panelists, and I'm sure you'll hear more from them. I would also like to invite Dr. Gauri Bhasin. Gauri wears multiple hats. Gauri, please welcome. Gauri wears multiple hats. She's involved with Manav Rachna. She's an employee of the Manav Rachna. She heads admissions, and but today she's here on a very important role, which is that of a parent. So her daughter currently studies in an IBDP school. She's a true blue IB student, having done the PYP program, middle years program, and now doing the DP program. So we're going to hear from her what is a parent's perspective in terms of the, why she has chosen the IB program and what is the impact that she sees for herself. Along with her, we also have Ms. Hina. She takes care of the outreach and admissions at the Ashoka University. So she will give the university perspective about the how the university looks at the IBDP students and how do they compare with the CBSE. Last but definitely not the least, we have Mr. Naman, who is again an IBDP student. He studied the IBDP and went on to study in India. He's an alumni of the Ashoka University and is currently working with the PwC. So studied the IBDP, went into study in India, and is now working in India. So that will give you a 360-degree perspectives into an IB education and how does it support your dreams. So, and today I'm Rashima, I'm the director of IB schools at Manav Rachna, and I'll be the moderator for the session today. Can we have the mics here, please? Sorry. Mics. So I'm going to start off the session today with with Miss Gauri, because I would like to understand from her that as a parent, what is it that got you interested? Why did you think of offering the IB, to put your child in an IB education, and what is it that impact that you've seen in your child? So we want to hear the story.
Right, thank you so much for that question, Rashima. Very pleasant afternoon to all of you. Good to see the excited parents and jubilant students around. And for the opportunity, because rarely I get to speak as a parent. So today I'm not representing Manav Rachna in first place, but a parent who has lived a very grateful journey of having my child walk through the journey of IB. Coming to the question that what made me take this decision or made us take this decision, I think before that, I want that we should know that IB is not new. It has been around since 1976. And it is present in over 150 countries. India is doing exceedingly well with more than 185 schools, world schools for IB. And it's growing and it's multiplying for reasons which are real. Coming to my own journey, when we were making a decision back in 2012, which curriculum to pick, very selfishly, there were three things which were pertinent to us. First, because coming from the academia, having that background, I could gauge very early that my daughter would never be able to fit into any rote learning kind of a setup. She was a kinesthetic learner, and we were very sure that we want her to carve her own learning path. That's when we started exploring the curriculums, multiple other curriculums. But why we chose IB was she was allowed to decide her own learning voyage. And as I said, being the grateful parent, to 2024, she will complete her journey, which is almost on the edge. She's in class 12, and it has proven itself thoroughly. Her entire journey has been carved basis her own persona, nothing which was imposed. The next important thing which we as parents had in mind was that we want her to be a proud Indian, but we want her to be a global citizen. Both these things combined together, the curriculum which she should embark upon was of pertinent importance to us. And that's, again, when IB gave us all those perspectives to decide in favor. Now, what were those perspectives? The first and foremost was assessments. Well, not comparing anything, but as a parent, I can say there is neither a question nor an answer when it is about IB assessments. It is so beautifully carved at every step that it's your learning which reflects in the grades and not marks, and that's why they are called grades. Just to give a reference, very early, she decided to do an app which was on event management for school, because that's what IB had instilled in them: identify a problem around you and then work on a solution for the larger good. So the problem was 1 or 2 odd trips where she felt that it was too much of a burden for the school, for the teacher who was responsible for arranging those events or trips, and then, of course, for the parents. So a lot of to and fro, emails happening. If there are trips, the medical history, the consent forms, and whatnot. And that's from where the idea came: why not give my school an app where they can manage the events, more so the trips, seamlessly in an organized manner where the communication is fluid, everything is organized, what a parent requires, at what time it is required to put in the information, to lock and unlock the information, and on the other side for the school also to have a very seamless experience and much more structured. That's about the learning part of identifying the problem and then giving a solution to it. Another beautiful interface I had when it comes to assessments, which of course I would leave it to the experts to talk about, be it theory of knowledge, extended essays, IAs, and whatnot. It allows you to love the learning you have around. The subject you want, you're not limited to think within the limits. You can think beyond the limits. One of the IAs she was working on because of her love for physics, along with what she loved doing in her spare time was guitar. So physics and guitar combined, she did an IA where she was pondering deep into all those dynamics of different strings, of notes and whatnot. And when it came out, I think that's the learning I wanted her to have, and that's what IB provided. This is about assessments. Over and above, I think the flexibility of making a choice of subjects, not limiting yourself to any stream, is another beautiful part of IB, which I think no other curriculum by far has been able to offer, which again, as a parent, we people were extremely sure about going ahead with. And lastly, and most importantly, which I definitely want to highlight, is CAS. It's something which intrigues the person within you. CAS, these are 3 words, but it shapes your persona right from the beginning till the time you move out. And I have seen that independent decision-making coming from their creativity, action, and of course the service, where you have to stimulate your mind, you have to stimulate your body, which is physical action, and of course the larger good of community, not restricting only to the CSR initiatives, but looking at community with a very different aspect. That is something absolutely unique to IB curriculum. And from 2012, today at 2023, close to 2024, I think it has been a phenomenal journey as a parent and I couldn't be happier about the choice we made back then.
Thank you so much, Gauri. I think that was really insightful, and it truly showcases what a parent experiences when their child is going through the IB journey. I've seen that many times over the years, that when children take and become a part of the IB curriculum, the parents also undergo a transformation of sorts, and that is something so significant for the entire community. So moving on, yeah, my next question is, of course, for Veer. Veer, you've been a IBDP student, have been, and you've gone through. Can you just tell us about your own experience of being an IB student, and how do you think that truly shaped you as a person? Do you think that having done the ISC for such a long time and then moving into the IBDP at grade 11 and 12 and then moving abroad to study, how well did the IB curriculum prepare you for your journey, and how did it impact you in your overall personality that stays even today? So I would definitely love to hear your story.
No, thank you, firstly, for having me here today. I think the IB is such a brilliant program because if I talk about what I'm doing today in my role, I'm presenting, I'm talking with a lot of people. I would say I don't use any of my maths knowledge, I don't use my physics knowledge. It's actually one class that I took in the IB diploma, which was theatre, which I think I use skills from theatre in my role today more than any other subject. So for me, the decision to take IB, I think, was also because I could take a variety of subjects. If you go through the ISC system, you're taking a science or humanities or commerce, whereas in the IB, I could take physics at a high level, mathematics, business. I could do theater, English. So I could take a variety of different subjects. And I think it's a great program which prepares you for university. You learn to think. University is not easy. It's a great fun place, but you are an independent learner. You have to manage your time. You have to have skills in terms of communication. You have to be able to look at the same topic from different perspectives. And I think all those aspects the IB builds in a student. So, even if we're looking today at, I can look around and there's some sustainability goals that are mentioned over here. Now, if we're talking about solving the problem that we have with climate change, it's not just the physics students who can do it. They have to work with the international relations departments. Different countries have to come together. They have to work with the chemists to say, okay, what's happening in the field of chemistry to solve these problems. So today, those problems have to be solved by a variety of different subject areas and not just one subject area. And lastly, if we look at careers, in the last 2 decades, there was a report by, I think it was Deloitte or one of the consulting firms that had published it, but the jobs that have sustained today are not just technical jobs, but they have a soft skills component to it. So it's how do you work in a team, it's communication, it's research, it's all these different things coming together with the technical skills that a degree or a diploma would give you. So you have to integrate the two together, and I think the IB does that really beautifully. So I've been able to obviously draw on all these different experiences, and I have to say that it does prepare you better for university. I find IB students are way more prepared than students who come from the Indian boards. You understand what plagiarism is. You learn how to do research. You learn how to ask questions. We don't ask questions. And so you have to do that. Having said that, if you're moving from a CBSE or ISC background, it is a challenge. You have to completely unlearn what you've been taught and be open to looking at things in a broader perspective and looking at things from different perspectives. So I think it took me maybe about 3-4 months to just understand that, okay, this is not how things work. You have a continuous assessment. You'll be tested on your vocal skills. You'll be tested on your verbal knowledge of English, for example, not just a final examination. So I think it tests you in different skills, and all those skills come together to make your journey to university easier. And you definitely perform a lot better in first year than students who won't be from the IB. That's what I felt. And so I'm very grateful that I did the system. But again, it's something that I've really benefited from.
Thank you so much, and I completely resonate with what you've said. In my over 20 years of teaching the IBDP program and having worked in IB schools, I've always, it's when your children go back and graduate and go to college, I've always asked them that how has the first year been? And and it's never been any different for anybody. So no matter which university they've gone for, they said, well, it's a breeze. We did all of that in grade 11 and 12. So that way it prepares you very well, because when you move into university, there are many factors that come into play. Or suddenly in an independent environment, you've got to live on your own in many cases. You've got to manage your finances, your food, your education, a new system, so many new things. If you're going to add the challenge of learning things like research and collaborative and communication skills, I think you're just making your life a little bit more difficult. And I've known students from very good backgrounds going into university and not being able to cope up and coming back. So that's also something that is very important factor that we need to keep in mind when we are looking at an education for our children. Moving on to Naman, I think, so Naman is also a student having done the IBDP and stayed back in India. So we would love to hear your story as to why you picked up IBDP. Why did you decide to stay back in India, and how was that experience? And how did your journey compare with other students that you might have had in your university who maybe came from the national curriculum? Could you see any difference, or was it just the same? So just want to hear your story.
Sure. In fact, it's lovely to see that there are students here along with parents. I'd like to share my story first before I actually get into what university was like and how IB prepared me for that. I think one of the first things was, I remember being a 16-year-old. I remember living life on autopilot. I remember preparing for my exams, feeling frustrated that, all right, fine, I understand the value of this, but at the end of the day, I'm giving like 9 tests, that's it. And the moment it's done, like the moment I hit my first summer vacation after 10th grade, I've given my boards, everything's over. It's over, what now? Why did I do this? Do I have to repeat 2 years of this again in the same sort of format? Now, when I entered IB, that was the first time I thought, all right, what do I want to do? And one beauty was, I noticed, all right, it's not just about the tests I have, it's not just about an exam structure. It's about, I got this ability to, I got my first taste at project-based things. So, for example, in biology, I was forced to not just take the same exam, but I was forced to wear the hat of a researcher. I need to actively create an experiment. That is a part of my learning structure. In business, or at least like in my business course, I was forced to wear the hat of an entrepreneur. I have to create a strategy. I have to talk to an actual founder. If I don't do that, that is baked into my curriculum. Likewise, when I was in economics, I had to wear the hat of an analyst. Now, in each of these, you're going to notice that there's a high element of project and application of what you're learning apart from just the exams alone. And that made it beautiful because, all right, while I understand theory alone is wonderful, in terms of applying that, I could choose where I want to go. Now, in that process, there were lots of unintended, or at least serendipitous things that came out of that. For example, when I chose an internal assessment in business, you get to choose whatever you want. I decided I wanted, as a 16-year-old, I was able to gather the guts to call up the CEO of Chios, introduce myself as an IB student, that I want to do this, that I want to understand this. This is where I thought I could add value, and I want to learn from your journey. I just want 10 minutes. That was something I never thought he would respond to a 16-year-old. But that was one of the small key journeys that came out of IB. And I know for a fact that if I didn't have a project that was even pushing me in that direction, I wouldn't get into that. So when I entered university, or at least when I entered Ashoka for the first time, firstly, the reason I chose an Indian university was partly because of cost, partly because I saw my elder brother who went abroad, and I noticed when he came back to India, what was that journey like. I noticed that I wanted a network, or at least I wanted not just the security of having other people, or at least like-minded people, but I knew that even in terms of jobs, in terms of other referrals, in terms of building that network, I noticed the IITs, I noticed how students were supporting each other here and how alumni networks are supporting. I saw my father had more of an alumni network in India than my own brother did. So when I got into Ashoka, one of the first things I noticed was there was still a high emphasis on using that project-based knowledge more than just that theory alone. So one of the first things right off the bat was, while other people were grappling with, for example, all right, you need to, at a college level, you will be introduced to perhaps research, you'll be introduced to having to spearhead your own pieces. I was already used to that. as a result of my extended essay, that is essentially a 2,000-piece paper, we had to, in university, it was almost expected broadly to produce something like this on a bi-weekly, weekly basis. It was normal for me. And in fact, I could draw on my extended essays. And I know a lot of my science-based, or at least my STEM-based friends, they took their extended essays and they turned that into something in their first courses itself. So that means that whatever you create and whatever your interest was from school itself, you could nurture that further in university. That was beautiful from my perspective. Anything else about when I got into university? Any other questions?
So that's all right, if you can't remember much about it, but I think it was really insightful of your journey and to talk about it, and I do agree that, the kind of skills that are required in college on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis is something that the IB builds so beautifully, so your journey becomes much more easier and smoother. I'll move the question a little bit towards Mr. Mahesh, who's working very closely with schools in India and Southeast Asia. So Mahesh, in India, there is a lot of the whole conversation about the recognition of the IBDP, whether it's recognized, whether it allows students to compete in competitive exams. And that's a typical question. How much does it link up the curriculum? So the questions around it is something that the parents continue to grapple with. If you could shed some light on this area, would really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. And I will come to that in a while. I would like to take what Gauri said and what Naman said and what we said as well. My own children have done the IBDP as well. Would they have thrived as well in other boards? Yes. Would they have excelled? Yes. But why did they do the IBDP? Okay. It has made them a very different personality. That's what I would like to say first. Okay. And what she said about CAS, she said it correctly. It's creativity, action, and service. But I like to call it personally as community, action, and service. So one of the CAS projects my son did was to go to Indonesia and build a road from a village to a jetty. And the happiness the villagers expressed is a lifelong experience. My other son, he did community service in an old age home. He went to a Rohingya camp to teach first aid skills. And he just didn't do 50 hours. He did 2 years continuously. How did it help him? It helped him get into medical school. Okay, this is very important. If you do a national board or other board, can you get into engineering competitive exams? Yes. Can you do IBDP and get into engineering or medicine? Definitely yes. Are students from India getting into those kind of institutions? Definitely yes. Okay. The myth is IB curriculum is not suitable for a NEET or a JEE, which is not right. Okay. We have done various mapping exercises. What happens is the curriculum difference per se is very little. It's more the pattern of exams, one. And there's a lot of rigor in IBDP, a lot of rigor. You get to discover yourself as a student. Naman mentioned something, I'll add to that. My son was a science student, okay? But he's very passionate about history. In his extended essay, he wrote about the Mao revolution in China. He's passionate about it. Could he have gone to Harvard? Possibly. He had the right kind of subject choices. He had the inclination. That's the beauty of IB. Students get into MIT, they get into Stanford, Harvard, and all the leading schools, including St. Andrews, NUS, NTU, Australia, you name it, they go there. Many of them crack the SATs without any preparation as well. They do that. So if they are given that grounding, can they crack a JEE? Yes. But I think what we as parents have to look at is the world is changing. New age careers have emerged. New age universities have emerged. Something like Ashoka would deliver a world-class education in India here. We have Flame, we have Plaksha, so many other avenues are available. But still, if you're very particular about doing JEE or NEET only, with the IB students get into medical schools here. Okay, I'm just telling you that yes. But what happens is, there are many schools in India, including IB schools. What they do is, it's the pattern part of it. Okay, they start incorporating in their school calendar, which helps them prepare. But also, you know that there are things like Kota Factory, Hyderabad, and all of that. Okay, let's not get into that. But I'm saying, if the other boards could just do that, then these industries would not have emerged. You would not have had a Kota Factory and all. If you still want to do JE, take a gap year and go for it. Okay, your learning is applied. You know what you have to do. That is there. So we have a letter from the Association of Indian Universities which says that IB students are eligible for the CLAT, the CUET, JE and NEET. So students are eligible. Do IB students from India get into those institutions? Yes. Myth is that they don't. There is also a myth that 50% of our students go, or 100% of our students go overseas. That's a myth. 50% of them continue their higher education in India, in universities like Ashoka, in NMIMS, in DU, in University of Mumbai, and many more. Even in a small place like Bhopal, there's a university called Barkatullah University. Okay, it's a state university, and people do join that.
Thank you so much, Mahesh. So that was very important to note that 50%, and I know that this is something that a lot of parents continue to think that IB education is for those who are looking at going abroad. And it's good to know that at least over 50% of students who are doing the IBDP continue to stay in India, study in India, work in India, and are completely connected with their culture. So moving on to you. So what I would request you is to tell us that, sometimes there is a perception that the CBSE students have an advantage in terms of admission cycles over IBDP students. And so can you give us a little bit of perspective in terms of Ashoka? How does Ashoka look at IBDP students, and is there any disadvantage that they feel?
So thank you so much for having me here. I was just, when I was going through what each of you were talking here, you have a very special connection with IB, right? I only work for a university which very happily accepts IB students, but I would say I just feel that I should have been born a decade or something later and, would have studied in an IB school. That's how I love IB board, and I only got to know when I started to work with Ashoka that how amazing there are things that you could do. So answering your question, of course we do not have any particular distinction, but what Naman was of course talking about, that it's a very natural transition for students from an IB school to study at Ashoka. But our application process, of course, is a very unique, a merit-based, application process, which really focuses on the affirmative action. So the process is about, what have you really done on this earth for the 17, 18, or 19 years of your life, right? It doesn't put any particular advantage on any particular aspect. So we do, of course, take into consideration your academic rigor, your co-curriculars, your extracurriculars, your projects. So whatever opportunities that you had in your life, in your fears of academic and non-academic journey. Saying that, of course, no student, neither a state board or a CBSE or an IB student has, is at a disadvantage when they apply to Ashoka, because every application is evaluated based on its very unique context. You have a very unique journey to talk about. And we are, from the perspective, we feel that the scores is a very, very narrow approach to looking at a student or an application. That's the reason that we look at your overall life, at Ashoka. So that's what the application process is for us.
I'd like to share one small anecdote here. So while applying, a bunch of my friends and I had also applied to Ashoka simultaneously. One piece was, we noticed that, all right, I could be classified more or less as a commerce-heavy person. Now, what happens? Suppose, what happens when you've got two people who score 99% or something extremely high, more or less they're in the same category, both of them fall into this more or less commerce bucket. How do you differentiate from each other? my friend and I had gotten an interview with Ashoka, and we didn't know what or at least how we had similar profiles, and we were afraid that, all right, why would they take two of us if we're extremely similar? She brought out her biology internal assessment about something related to platypuses, and she said that this is what I'm intensely passionate about. I want to showcase that passion. She brought out some piece about platypi. I brought out something related to music. And the beauty is all of this, like my music came out of Creativity Action Service. In one of those, I brought it out as one of my pieces. It was extremely easy as an IB student to fill out the interest section, hobby section, positions of leadership, because all of this was already, IB had already geared me to A, think in that direction, and B, gain laurels across 2 years in these places. So I was already equipped for any sort of university piece there and to differentiate myself. And in that process of becoming a T-shaped learner, something where I've got, or at least some sort of experience in one place, but I've also got breadth of knowledge. That was something that IB had already shaped me from 10th grade itself to start thinking in those lines.
Can I just make a quick point? It just came to mind when we're talking about different exams, we're talking about an interview, we're talking about, the IIT JEE or whatever it is. There's a big difference. If you're studying for a paper, I can give you the last 10, 15 years of a particular paper and you'll be able to crack it. But if I put a different paper in front of you, you'll be lost. Whereas IB, what's the base of the IB is being a learner. So you're not preparing for a particular exam, you're preparing for the knowledge, for the love of learning. And if you do that, I can put any paper in front of you and you'll be able to cope with it. So I think that's what IB as a learner prepares you for. An IB student will never say, I know everything, because they know that can't be true. Whereas if you're from another board, if you've studied that book of physics, you feel you know everything, but that's never the case. So I think if you're a learner, whether it's a university interview or an exam or JEE, whatever you're preparing for, if you're a learner, you'll be able to adapt to it. And that's just something I think came out of this conversation also.
Wonderful. Thank you, Veer. I think one of the questions a lot of time parents have, and I'll leave this open to Veer, Naman or Gauri as a parent, is that, children who study in the IBDP are not connected to their culture or they move away from their culture. That's a common question or a fear, I would say, that there is in the mind of a lot of parents. So if anybody of you or all of you would like to just share anything about this, we would really appreciate to hear your thoughts.
A question very close to my heart, and I've lived it, so I'm taking the liberty to answer first. So we've been hopping places within the country and overseas, and that was one of the fear which I had when we were choosing the curriculum, because every 2 years you're moving and you're a bit sensitive to the fact that having a single child, you can adapt, but will the child be able to adapt to the new environment every now and then, starting as early as class 2? So when we moved to Europe, when my daughter was in class 6, somewhere middle, and trust you me, she was the first one to seamlessly enter into an environment where there were around 66 students coming from 66 nationalities studying together. And over and above, so when I said in the beginning that I wanted her to be, or rather we wanted her to be a global citizen and a proud Indian, I think she actually lived that journey there when we moved to Europe, collaborating with these students from different nationalities, working together, growing together, learning together, living together. And then when she became the CAS captain of the school, I think that's where she made India proud, that yes, we know how to collaborate and we also know how to lead well. So I have lived that journey. I'm going to take the liberty to answer a bit more on what Mahesh just highlighted about the students being absorbed within the universities in the country. That's so true. In last decade, around 150% more IB schools have come up in India. Are they all feeding into international universities? No, they are not. Are their careers already prepared for the students who are now entering the realms of education? For example, early years of IB or PYP, those careers have not even been built so far. But when we are talking about new age careers, let me just shift my boots into Manav Rachna, Ashoka, Plaksha, and many more, even in remote locations, they understand when we see, specifically when we are absorbing every year 4,000 students, there is a huge chunk coming from IB. And the universities are well prepared to offer the new age careers, making a choice pretty early, getting into that niche, having that kind of industry collaborations, having the centers of excellence. So 26 years of existence of Manav Rachna with 26 centers of excellence, having as niche as center of culinary excellence. So that's the beauty of evolving era of education, which is starting from early years, moving to middle school, high school, higher education, and if I may say so, IB is not preparing students for universities, they're preparing students for life, because life is evolving and technology is playing a pivotal role. And I think that is what again comes back to the curriculum, because every school is developing their IB curriculum or modifying or putting in the methodological aspirations. And I would request Rashima to highlight about it something as beautiful as design thinking right from class 1. How beautiful is that? And the labs which are prepared so that they have that experience right in the beginning, how to build those projects, put it into application, live it at your school place, live it at your home place, have it around when you're playing with your friends in the playground. That's the beauty of the learning, which we have to, and we are kind of given the responsibility to provide to the new generation. Thank you.
On the cultural part, okay, I would like to say that IB prepares you to be a global citizen. You're global yet local. I'll give you a small anecdote. I think my son is a classic example. He can fit in New York, he can fit in a village in India. He'll be at ease. If you talk about history, religion, culture, if you're all watching KBC, I'll tell you, he'll get absolutely 100% of the questions right. Okay? It's not just the school, it's the parents, the environment, your personal interest in learning. And IB gives you those opportunities. It's a course, it's a program like none other. Okay? It helps you discover your strengths, lets you know your weaknesses, and then you build that and ensure that they do not remain your weaknesses. Okay? This is something which I wanted to share with you all, that you have the choice. You can, if you like physics, you can do physics. You can do chemistry and biology without physics. Just to share with you, today medical schools around the world are asking for mathematics as a subject. In India, you don't need mathematics to enter a medical school. All these things make for a great program. I have sat on university admission panels. I was in one of the courses in NTU Singapore, and what do we look at students? There we looked at students who have the X factor. Like Rashima said, it's no longer about grades. When you're not looking at grades, how do you differentiate? It's that student who brings that unique portfolio, the X factor. That's what you need a child to thrive at university. In schools, usually we are all mollycoddled. You know, if you're growing from nursery to class 12 in the same school especially, or even in any class, teacher knows you very well. That's why Naman is here today, Veer is here. Classic example of the teacher knowing them. Correct? But in university, you're one in a crowd. How do you thrive? How do you get prepared? Self-directed learner, research skills, working with teammates from different backgrounds. That's very important. I think IB does a great job through schools to prepare the students for a life, like she said, not just about employment or other. You become a citizen for life.
Thank you. Yeah, please. Go ahead, Naman.
One more thing. So, just sharing an experience here. Within India itself, when I graduated, I was really afraid that, oh, okay, people are going to. It's very easy when you get into college to try to make friends based on similarities. Either you're going to be similar in terms of geography, you're going to be similar because ICSE, CBSE, or maybe because of your school that, all right, there are 3 of you from your school, so you'll club together. So I was afraid there might be an in-group, out-group divide. But when it came to one project, like when COVID hit, or at least I was in university when COVID hit, none of this really mattered. We all came together. I noticed even between universities and between different places. I remember I had a tech friend. He was an ICSE kid. Both of us were equally crazy, or at least both of us had this sort of audacious personality. We want to create a telemedicine platform together. He created the tech, I created what it should be like, and I thought, you know what, we've got a bunch of doctors, and we've got all these, we've got these medical universities. I reached out to one, and I found Vellore in one space and another university. We were geographically separate, but when we came together, we didn't care about who we were, what was going on. We didn't care about our backgrounds. We thought, how can we help? We got into an inter-university project just like that. None of this. So what I'm trying to say is that there was no in-group, out-group divide. The moment we came together for something like a project, or at least the moment we unified under one mission, all of these just dissolved away. And however we could help, that became more important.
I think the skills that you picked up about collaborative work, of being a global citizen and working in a collaborative space is what really held you in good stead. I think Veer wants to add some, he did theater as a subject, and I think he wants to draw from that to talk about his connect to the culture.
Yeah, I would say I actually was more connected to the culture after the IB. So within theater, we had to do a project, and I actually picked Kathakali as my project. Now, before this, I had no clue what Kathakali was. I might have seen, a few things on stage, and I actually went to parts of the South, Kerala, and actually saw how the dances in the South work. And then actually my project was based around the way Kathakali is actually not a dance form, it's actually a theater form, and how different hand movements and things work and so on. And as part of my class, I learned the tabla in the 11th and 12th grade. So I would actually, it's quite funny, but I actually probably got more connected to Indian dance forms and instruments after the IB than before. So that's just my story over there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So I know that we are very short of time, and being a little sensitive, I'll first open the floor to questions from the audience. Anybody has a question, burning question that you want to ask any of our panelists?
So people ask, when are your results declared? Okay, IB results are in 2 sessions. So one comes in early July, July 5th, and other is in early January. How do universities then accept students? They accept on the basis of predicted grades. Okay, so that's something very important. So don't panic if you think that IB results come only in July. What will happen? No. IB students get an equal opportunity. They tend to do very well. They can apply to global universities who offer them conditional offers with financial assistance, without financial assistance. In US, if you're going, most of it is firm offers. You're looking at UK, it could be a conditional offer. Okay, many of the universities in India, they hold their places for IB students. So you can be rest assured on that. Yes, yes. Any question now from the floor? I think I've hopefully triggered some thoughts.
Anything about career choices? Okay, so I'm going to use this opportunity to talk a little bit about the IB program that we're offering at the Manav Rachna and what is the vision with which we've started off. So while IB, so far in Faridabad, you only have 2 schools that offer the IBDP. You have Shiv Nadar, which started very recently, and you've got Santa Maria that is offering the DP. We aspire to be the first continuum school. By continuum school, which means that from the very first grade on the school to the last grade, we look at offering the IB education because we believe in this whole philosophy of start early. If the DP program is so amazing and it's got such wonderful skills, why should you start only at grade 11 and 12? Why don't you start off as early as in the early years? Because that allows you to build upon your skills in a very gradual manner, and in your transition from program to program is very smooth. As a school, we've also looked at what differentiates us from another IB school. At Manav Rachna, we are looking at emphasis on two major programs, and one is the design thinking and innovation. Because in today's world, one of the key skills that any organization or any school, any workplace requires is innovation. And innovation is not only just creating a new thing, it's an innovative way of looking at things. It's an innovative solution to a problem that you might encounter in your workplace. It might be an innovative of working with another person. So that's what innovation is all about. And that is something which is so critically important, and that is why we are starting off with design thinking right from the early years, where we are looking at age-appropriate tasks and exposure to stimuli that allows children to build those thinking skills and build innovations in a variety of ways. The other thing that we feel very strongly about is strong communication skills within the IB. So the second program that the Manav Rachna is really paying focus on is in the literacy program that we built in. We are currently sitting in this beautiful library that has been conceptualized to build those literacy steps. We are using a very well-structured literacy program called the Fontes and Pennell Literacy Program, because we want to build strong communication skills. And that is something which is at the heart of the IB program. Very strong communication skills, again, something that all workplace need, no matter what career you go into, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a chartered accountant, whether you're in management, whether you're working in a business, you do definitely need strong written and spoken communication to connect with your audience. And that is something that the IB program focuses on very strongly, and that is also an area of interest for us. And all students who join us, we start mapping their literacy journey from the very first day. 2 assessments in a year, and look at it how we are building it. While we started about 2 months ago, we've had such positive feedback from our parents about the level of communication skills that our children have started to exhibit. We have a parent here in the audience as well, Miss Ambika. Her daughter is a part of the Manav Rachna school, and she can absolutely vouch for the independent behavior, becoming more self-organized, working independently, and strong communication skills that her daughter has started to showcase in a very short time that she's been here. I would love to share. Please.
I was, as other parents, I was apprehensive and took a lot of time in that confusion whether I should take a decision of shifting from a CBSE school to an IB school, and she's in just grade 2. And can't tell you, the transition has been really smooth, and there is a shift in the way she talks, the way she, and what kind of words a grade 2 child I can't expect. She talks about sustainability. She was talking to her elder sister who's in grade 10, and she said that she was talking about some planets. There is a space exploration topic going on, and she was saying that, there's a dry planet, and the elder one didn't know. She said, okay, can you tell me a little more about it? So why don't you research on it? Imagine the younger one talking about research, sustainability. And today in the morning, I was getting ready. Today is a big day that we all are here together. And she got up, and I saw her running out of the room to be outside. It was dark still. It was somewhere around 5:30, in between 5:30 to 6. I said, what happened? No, please open the doors. So there is some planet. Her teacher must have told her that there's some eclipse or something, some planetary, solar or lunar, I don't know what. I couldn't, so I have to go back and check with her what it was and what she saw. So this is the kind of practical learning that is very much evident. As a parent, I'm really, really happy taking this decision of finally taking a call that yes, I have to, and because she is not the child who was comfortable with the rote learning, who can really, I wasn't expecting much when she was in the other school, though I have now, my expectations are coming up, like she's just really responding well with the education system. In fact, one word I would say, when you say culture, getting more close to culture, I would say for her and for me also looking at her, it's being more close to learning. With the IB transition, she's more close to learning, whether it is learning and experiencing culture, subject, art, projects. I've seen her showcasing and her friends also showcasing projects in the room recently.
Yeah.
In the last showcase that happened, and the way she literally picked up a junk handle somewhere from the junkyard, small space that we have where we just dump things, certain things. She picked up and she said, "This is my project." I said, "What? This is your project? How will it work?" And the way she was showcasing to everyone with confidence, this is going to squeeze the clothes, wet clothes, and make it easy. It is something, these are the real experiences I'm telling you. I've seen in last few months that she has transitioned, and as a parent,
Yeah.
I can really,
I think what really stands out for me as a school is that the joy of learning, where you don't need to wake up a child, when the child is motivated enough and is connected to the learning. See, the unfortunate part is that we think that learning stops when you move out of the classroom. For me, it's that the love of learning gets ignited in the classroom, but learning continues outside. And when we've done that, I think the teachers and the school's job is done. You don't need to give them all the information, you just need to ignite it, that they will look for it everywhere. And that is the beauty of the IB programs.
I would like to say, for the benefit of parents here, if you are a CBSE student, an ICSE student, or a state board student wanting to make a transition into the DP, don't think that it's going to be difficult. The school will prepare your students for the journey of the IBDP. It's something I want to share with you all, okay? The pattern might be different, but that's how schools do. They would do a bridging program, they would do a briefing program, and they will let you know in advance what the program entails. I think you would be in good hands with Manav, Rachna here. So if you're looking at IBDP from coming across from another board, okay, please do not take that as a concern.
Thank you so much. Mahesh, if there are now no other questions, anybody else wants to ask a question? Any last thoughts anybody wants to share over here? Anything that you feel that about your own stories that you may have missed out on?
Well, not something which I've missed out, but I think something which from a parents, from an educators, and from an institution's perspective, I want everybody to keep this thought with themselves, that it's the concept of education which matters, and for IB, the concepts on which it is built, which is about change, continuity, perspective, significance, consequences. These are the pillars which are preparing them for the ever-evolving educational scenario, and that's what the future workforce is absolutely adorned to absorb right as early years. Thank you very much.
I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of our panelists. I know that in today's day, time is the biggest commodity, and it's the most valuable commodity that we all have. And for each one of you to have taken out time from your busy schedules, coming here, speaking to our students, our parents, and explaining the way the IBDP and has impacted your lives, or the way it could impact your lives. I think I really want to thank each one of you. As well as for the audience for being here, listening to our thoughts and our journeys. And I hope that these will inspire you to think about and creating your own journey for yourself. Thank you so much once again.